Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Yisrael David here for Virtual Kollel, and we have our Virtual Kollel today at a new time. Are you coming to learn with us? All right. Well, have a great morning. And we're going to be having a little bit of a shorter Virtual Kollel today. It's going to last. We're starting at we wanted to start earlier this morning, and we're a little delayed, and so we're starting. We're going to cut our time a little short. Anyway, so I'm not going to give you a lot of introductory commentary. So you should go ahead and maybe pay attention to some of the other virtual Kollel sessions that we've done, just to go ahead and see some of the commentary that I think is really necessary in order for you to understand the Book of Ruth, Sefer Ruth. Basically, what I want to go ahead and say is just to give you a little bit of an idea of where we're at. So something kind of like when you watch a TV show, this is what happened. What happened last time was in our last episode, etc. So basically, you have a family, an Israelite family, I should say, from Judah. So they're the Jehudite family. They're your family of Yehudim, from the tribe Shevet Yehuda, from the tribe of Judah, and so they go ahead and leave Eretz Yisrael because of a ra'av, because of a famine, and then they go to the land of Moab, Eretz Moab. Eretz Moab. There's the matriarch is Elimelech. The patriarch is Elimelech. The matriarch is Noami, and then you have two sons, Machlon and Kilion. And so there's four in the family, Machlon and Kilion, the two sons. They both marry Moabite women, and one of the Moabite women, anyway, all the males pass away. Okay, so there's that aspect, and then so there's only the females that are left, Noami and Orpah and Ruth. And so Noami basically says, I'm going back to Judah, I'm going back to Eretz Israel. And obviously Noami comes with her. First chapter. Second chapter, what happens is Noami and Ruth are now destitute. And which is especially significant if you understand, according to the sages, that Noami was the daughter of a Moabite king who's talked about in Sefer Shoftim, but I forget his name. But anyway, so she left royalty basically to be by Noami's side. And she took on the religion of Noami, and she took on the peoplehood of Noami, etc. And so then that's very significant. So in chapter 2, they're destitute, and Ruth says, "Look, I'm going to take matters into my own hands, and I'm going to al kota el asadeh. I'm going to go and glean from the field, from all the leftovers of the harvest." She goes, and with the idea that if she finds favor in the owner of the field's eyes, then she'll go and glean. The owner of the field is none other than Boaz. Boaz, who is he? He's a Goel, Migoelenu, who, as what Noami says, he's one of those who can redeem us. We'll talk about what that means in just a moment. And so basically the idea is that it's a very auspicious meeting, etc. So 3 months go by, the harvest time goes by, and so basically Boaz is ostensibly feeding them and sustaining them. However, he's not acting as a goel. So what's a goel and what does that mean, etc.? We'll look at that in just a quick second. But anyway, so he's not acting as a goel. So in chapter 3, and we in our lessons and our times together, basically we've talked about the parallel with Yehuda and Tamar. So Yehuda and Tamar, really quickly, just to go ahead and push the pause button on the review of Ruth, that Yehuda and Tamar basically, Tamar marries one of Yehuda's sons, his eldest sons, Judah, we're talking about, by the way, of the tribe of Judah, the person who the Shevet is named after. And so the first son dies, and so then the second son takes Tamar in marriage in a kind of quasi-yibum idea. We talked about that Levirate marriage. We again refer back to some of the previous learning together. But he doesn't consummate the marriage, and so therefore Hashem Hashem punishes him and he dies. So then there's the third son. The third son is Shelah, and he's too young to be married. And so Yehuda, maybe sensing some foul play, says, well, why don't we wait until he's in order for you to marry him? And so Tamar is now an igun, now aguna. She's chained now to waiting until he's of age. And so what happens is that he becomes of age, she hears of it, and then sees that Yehuda is not giving him over in marriage, and she decides to take matters into her own hands. She dresses like a prostitute. She seduces Yehuda. She conceives and bears a son by Yehuda, and then the rest is history. Now, Noemi, probably knowing this story and thinking about one of her ancestors and how she took matters into her own hands, now tells Ruth in chapter 3 to go ahead and take matters into her own hands. And so she instructs Ruth to go to the threshing floor, and while Boaz is threshing all of the crops that had just been harvested, that harvest season, etc., and to go ahead and try and seduce him. However, and Ruth, she pays heed to what Naomi's saying. However, with one big, huge difference. So Naomi, as chapter 3 sets it up, basically says, look, I want to give you manucha. I want to give you some comfort and some rest from all of your supporting me. Look, it's time that you step out and go get married. So she basically gives Ruth some steps on how to seduce Boaz. Why not? He's a wealthy man after all. So Ruth, she basically kind of follows what Naomi tells her to do. And we talked about that a little bit last time. However, what does Ruth say? Ruth basically in her encounter with Boaz says, go el ata. Let's see. That's something of that nature. You are a redeemer. Okay. And so what happens is that the response from Boaz is that he says, her righteousness her latter righteousness is even better than her former righteousness. Why? Because she's picking him to be one of the Go'alim, who's going to go ahead and redeem, one of the redeemer who's going to go ahead and redeem the lineage of Ruth's husband and go ahead and literally become a Goel. Now, why does he say that it's a righteous thing that she's doing that? Is because he's a very old man. According to the sages and also according to the text. He says, you could have chosen a younger man, whether he's rich or poor, but instead you chose me. And so ostensibly, probably Ruth was very beautiful. We don't necessarily have very specific indication from the text, but you can imagine, having been raised as royalty, etc., she probably knew how to put herself together and how to carry herself, at least in a very dignified manner, etc. So what he says in response, though, is he says the Shavuot. He says, Chai Hashem, I will, as Hashem lives, I will go ahead, which is a language of making a Shavuot, making an oath. He basically says, I will redeem you. However, there's one monkey wrench. The monkey wrench is that there is a Goel who's closer to you, Karov Mimeni, who's closer than I am to you. So I need to offer I need to make the offer to him to go ahead and redeem you before I can. So anyways, that's all of our introduction. And so let's go ahead. Pretty good. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the text here. So I'm going to unfortunately have this little kind of inception effect here, and let's go ahead and there we go. So let's last verse of chapter 3, and I'm just going to go ahead and read this in. Hey, good morning. I'm just going to go ahead and read this in Hebrew and English. It says, "V'tomer shvi biti ad asher tid'in, eich yapol davar ki lo yishkot ha'ish ki im ki la hadavar hayom." And she said, still, my daughter, until you know how the matter will fall, for the man, meaning Boaz, will not rest until he has resolved the matter today. So we have some very illustrious, esteemed guests here learning with us right now. So just to go ahead and direct you guys, so where we're at, we're in the chapter 4 of Ruth. We're about to start chapter 4 of Ruth. We just went over kind of a little bit of a review of everything up to this point. So by the way, we're going to be learning probably for another 10 minutes. Then we're going to switch gears and talk about some of the laws and customs for Shavuot. So that's the program. You're more than welcome to interject. You can make a a agreement or rebuttal. You can take exception with what I say. So whatever you like, huh? Well, there you go. Exactly. Okay, so that's basically we're left on a cliffhanger at the end of chapter 3 of Ruth, where she's like, look, let's wait and see how everything plays out. So now it's kind of like it's kind of like they do in the episode, just like like you hear the harp music, and then it's like, meanwhile, back on the farm, so here you have here you have Boaz, and Boaz is going to basically go ahead and try and put himself in the idea of a redeemer. Oh, I said I would talk about what the redeemer is, by the way. So let's go there. So if you have, I don't know if you guys have, if you look in Deuteronomy chapter 25, we're going to talk about what a redeemer is. And I think this is where we want to be. Oh no, maybe it's Leviticus 25. Hold on, let me find it here. Maybe it's just they don't. Oh yes, actually, you know what? We were right. I was right in the beginning here. Okay. So let's go back here. Okay. So yeah, Deuteronomy. Sorry, by the way, I have a Ashkenazi accent, so if you don't understand what I'm saying when I read Hebrew, just disregard it. No, you could ask. So you could say, "Can you say that in normal Hebrew, please?" Okay. Anyway, so okay, Deuteronomy chapter 25:5. It talks about here the idea of yibum, and so yibum is levirate marriage. Let's see here, and continue on. Give me a second. Okay, so then it goes to this idea of chalitza. That what about if the next of kin or the brother of the deceased doesn't want to marry his brother's widow, and so that's what happens. Okay, and let's see here. Where's the talk about a goel? So it might be in Bahar, actually. I think it's actually in Leviticus chapter 25. Let's go ahead. And if we can't find it there, then we'll just talk about it outside. We won't look at it inside. So let's see here. Are you looking it up? Yeah. Let's see. Because I know this talks about Shemitah, and it's going to talk about Yovel. So Shemitah, the sabbatical year, and Yovel, the Jubilee year. It talks about, and I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Oh, in 23? Okay, so let's see. Ah, okay. Okay, here we go. Okay, so basically, start in 23. Haaretz lo timacher litzmitzus ki li haaretz ki gerim vesoshavim atem imadi. And the land, I have a very here. You know what? I have a very archaic translation here, so I'll try and clean it up. And the land should not be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine, for you are strangers and settlers with me. V'chol eretz achuzas Chuzaschem, ge'ula titnu la'aretz, and in all the land of your possession you shall grant a redemption for the land, meaning in the land reverts back to the original tribal plot, of who it was given to, whatever Shevet, whatever tribe. And so now we get into the crux of the situation. Now he said, well, but what if ki yamuch achicha umachar me'achuz haso? What about if your brother is poor and he sells some of his possession? Uvago aloi hakaroiv elav the gaal es mimkar achiv. Then shall his kinsman that is next unto him come and shall redeem that which his brother has sold. Okay. And so, meaning that the closest one, what happens is Yaakov basically owns a property and he becomes poor, and so he sells his ancestral land. Okay. And so he's not wealthy enough now to redeem it, at the time of the Shemitah, the Yovel, whatever falls first. And so what happens, it says there's supposed to come somebody who's a karov, somebody who's a close relative, right? And he has to do a geula, he has to do a redemption. The ish ki lo yeh lo goel, and so here we have this idea of a goel. And if a man has no one to redeem it, there's not a goel. V'hasiga yadoi umatza yidei geulasai. And if he be made rich and find sufficient means to redeem it, v'chishav es hasheni mim karoi v'heshiv es ha'odev leish asher mechalei v'shav la'achuz aso. Then let him count the years of the sale thereof and restore the overplus unto the man to whom he sold it, and he shall return into his possession. So basically, even if he's too poor, he declares bankruptcy, he has to sell it or liquidate all his assets. He liquidates his assets, Yaakov sells his land to Shimon, right? Who's from the tribe of Shimon, we'll say, right? Okay. And so he's like, all right, well, now then comes the time of the Shemitah or the Yovel. And so he's supposed to redeem the land. The land's supposed to go back to Yaakov. But what about if he doesn't have the means to purchase it back? So then what happens is, so Reuben, his karov, his close relative, can now buy it back from Shimon. Okay. However, what about if Reuben is not there? Right? What if there is no Reuben, or he can't find the Reuben? He doesn't know who the Goel is, who is his close relative that has the means to buy it back, etc. So it says, well, okay, not all is lost, that if he gets the means again, so he declares chapter 11 and then he rebuilds, and now he has the funds to go ahead and buy back the land. It says in verse 27 that he can do it. Not all hope is not lost. So the whole idea, not to get into these mitzvahs right here, because they're a little complicated in terms of inheritance and all this kind of a thing, but this comes into intersection with somebody who, oh, I forgot to do one thing, by the way. Hold on. Into intersection with somebody who is a Yavama, somebody who who dies without having any kin, or actually any progeny, any male progeny. And I say male progeny because it doesn't necessarily have to, according to halacha, it doesn't necessarily have to be his son. It could be maybe a son-in-law, or any male lineage who can act as a goel, because Yerusha, inheritance, doesn't go through women. Okay, it only goes through men, except in very rare cases, like in B'no Slofchod, the daughters of, how do you say Slofchod? Solofachad, is that how you said Solofachad? Okay, yeah. So except in that was a very rare instance, and so those kind of instances, there's some other halachas that go into. Anyways, it's all complicated. I mean, you could think of like tax attorneys who deal with who deal with property, inheritance laws and everything like that, huh? Wills and all these kinds of things like that. I mean, they go to school for all this, and so how much more? It's like really, complicated in halacha as well. Okay, so that's anyways the whole idea of the source of a goel. Now, what I want to go ahead and do is I want to go ahead and just go a little bit into chapter 4. Maybe we'll take a little bit more time. We'll go to about 7:35, and then because my idea is I wanted to finish by 7:45 to start preparing for the davening, etc. Okay, so Now, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and just kind of set the scene for what's happening with Boaz. So now we're in chapter 4 of Ruth and verse 1. Boaz Allah hasha'ar v'yeshev sham v'hine hagoel over asher diber Boaz v'yomer surah. Okay, and then Boaz is going to tell him. So let's translate up to there. And Boaz went to the gate. Now, why did he go to the gate? Because the gates of the city was basically, that's where town hall was. Okay, so he goes to town hall and he sits down, and behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz had spoken was passing. Now, the rabbis say that it's that, there's a very interesting medrash. There's a medrash right here that says basically that even if, so first of all, the Goel just happened to be in City Hall, when Boaz went there. And the Midrash says, though, if the Goel just didn't happen to be there, from wherever he was in the world, Hashem would have taken him and transported him over there. So it was like so important that he was there. That's the Midrash says that Hashem would have like transported him, either literally, figuratively, whatever, through like beaming him up, to whatever it is. What do you call it? What do you call it? Kafitza Saderech? How do you say it in English? Teleportation. Is that? No. Yeah. So kafitza, huh? Yeah, I don't know how to say kafitza Saderech. Uh, there's a word for it, but I can't think of it. It's what happened with Stephen. Contracting the land is literally what it means, but like, how do they say it in English? The teleport? Oh, you're talking about translation? Is that what it is? Okay, yeah. So, huh? Oh, Philip. Yeah, not Stephen. Philip. Some other thing happened to Stephen, which things didn't end so well for him. Okay. Um, he rocked and rolled. Okay. Vayikach asara anashim miziknei ha'ir v'yalmer shvu fo v'yeshevu. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't finish verse 1. So verse 1, it says, over asher diber Boaz, the guy that Boaz was talking about happened to pass by. The Yomer, Boaz said to him, Surah Shavapoi. He says, look, turn aside and sit here. Okay. Moni v'yasar v'yeshev. Okay, so here we have this first intrigue in the text. So the text calls him Ploni Almoni. That's not his name. Ploni Almoni means so-and-so. So you have to answer the question. You have to ask the question, either hopefully answer to. You have to ask the question: why is his name not given? So it basically says, as I have here in the translation, turn aside, sit down, so and so, and he turned and sat down. So wait, why does the text leave his name? Why does it deliberately blot his name out of the text? Huh? Okay, good. So one idea is that he refused Yibum. Okay, so but why does he refuse Yibum? As even another question. So one idea is that he, as looking, picture of coming attractions, that he refused Yibum, right, in some verses down, and so the text wants to protect the name of the innocent here, or whatever it is, or maybe the guilty. You be the judge, and so that's one idea. But there's some other ideas as well. But first of all, what does Ploni Almoni mean? Okay, so it's very interesting because Ploni comes from a word, according to some of the sages, that comes from the word Pele. Okay, so Pele is like means like wondrous, something that you're not able to like figure out. Okay, and Almoni comes from the word Elam. Elam means like somebody who's deaf. Okay, or no, I'm sorry, mute, can't speak. Okay, so it's basically saying like somebody who's like too wondrous and we can't even talk about him. Like this kind of idea. So that's like the idea of Ploni Almoni. It's not just necessary. I mean, they're not just like two random words, not like, like this, so-and-so guy. Well, so-and-so doesn't really mean anything. Here, the words actually have some kind of a meaning to it. And we'll see that, at least kind of midrashically, that Ploni Almoni actually might have some ideas in terms of, why he refused Yibum. Okay, so that might be, there's this whole intrigue in terms of why he might refuse Yibum, at least according to Chassidus. Okay, so... Okay, yeah, so it's very interesting that he says that. His name shows up in here. So let's go back to chapter 3. And we'll see something very interesting. So of course the rabbis can't be satisfied without naming him. and they said, that says we have to find his name, and so they find his name in the text. Let's see here. Let me look for it. Hold on one second. Huh? 313. There it is. Okay. Yes. Okay. There we go. So let's go ahead and look at 313. You have to look at it in Hebrew, otherwise you're not gonna see the wordplay. It says Lini. Okay, so this is Boaz, and he's talking to Ruth, and he says Lini halayla v'hayava beker im yigalech tov. He says stay tonight, and if he wants to, and I'm sorry, and when it becomes morning, if he wants to redeem you, good. Now, you can read it that way. However, the sages read it that if Tov wants to redeem you, then Yigal, that he'll redeem you. Right. So, and from looking at that from verse 13, the rabbi said, oh, there's his name. His name is Tov. Okay, so maybe that was his name, maybe it's not. Maybe the sages are just using a placeholder, rather than Ploni Amoli. But basically, his name is Tov, and maybe, if you think about it, because he refused Yibum, because he refused to, not necessarily actually Yibum, but to be the Goel. Because he refused to be the Goel, that maybe it wasn't Lotov, it was Lotov. It wasn't good. So maybe they want to take his name out because of that. So maybe perhaps it's the Novi Shmuel, the prophet Samuel, who's traditionally wrote the Book of Ruth, who wants to make a commentary on his action, saying that he's not good. He's is not living up to his namesake. Okay, so let's go back to 4 verse 2, and let's see here. So what do you guys think? Should we go like another 10 minutes here? And then we'll pause, because I was gonna switch gears, and I was going to work through like the laws and customs of Shavuot, but I guess I could do that later. I think we have some good steam going ahead, so we'll continue. Okay, verse 2. Vayikach asara anashim miziknei ha'ir v'yomer shvu fo v'yeshevu. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, sit down here. And so they sat down. So Boaz seems to have a lot of clout. He tells this guy, hey, you come here, sit down. And he does it. And he says, hey, you 10 men, we need some kind of a council here. Like, let's go ahead and you guys come over here, sit down. And they do it. So it's like whoever this Boaz is, he's a big shot. And according to the sages, he's the head of the Sanhedrin. Okay, whether that's literal or not, because remember, we're in the time of the Shoftim, time of the judges, where it says at the end of the book of Shoftim, it says every man did what was right in his own eyes. So it's like it's the wild, wild west over here. There's no like law and order. So maybe maybe there was a Sanhedrin, maybe there wasn't a Sanhedrin, maybe like they were trying to start a Sanhedrin, and so unclear exactly on whether that's anachronistic to read that he was the head of the Sanhedrin at this time period, because maybe there wasn't. It's because the text seems to say that there wasn't law and order. So but the other thing to the notice here in verse 2, why does he take 10 men? Because if you think about it, what can this not be? You might think that this is a group of people to act as judges or to act as witnesses, right? Witnesses, yeah, okay, maybe, but you just need 2. Why 10, right? And so you might say, oh, so they wanted to have a Beit Din, wanting to have a court. There's only one problem with that. You're not allowed to have a Beit Din with an even number of people, right? You can either have 3, 23, or 71. Those are the numbers that are given in Halacha. You can't have 10, because obviously if you even number, you can have a tie, and there's no way to break the tie. So what's going on here? Any suggestions from the crowd here? Not the crowd, not that I'm doing a show, but from the other esteemed gentlemen here. Huh? What'd you say? Oh, well, that's cheating. That's cheating. Okay, yeah. So the minion, right? So he needs a minion, but why does he need a minion? What do you need a minion for? Think about what's happening here. He's talking about being a goel, and he's going to talk specifically about land, but what's attached to the land? Something that just happened in chapter 3. So you guys are thinking way too hard. It's way easier than you think. I can ask another question. Oh, go ahead. The marriage, yeah, the marriage. So Ruth is attached to the land. Why? Um, because the whole idea is that instead of just trying to seduce him to get him as a husband for herself, like a guy to take care of her, instead, so she doesn't have to like do this hard labor in the field. What does she say? She says, "Go elata," that you're our goel, right? So she's now like invoking like the goel privileges, and so now it's a whole different thing. It's redeeming the land, yes, but it's what's attached to the land too, which is a marriage, and like keeping on the namesake of her husband, which we don't know which one it is, Machlon or Kilion. By the way, Machlon and who names their kids Machlon and Kilion? Do you know what they mean? Machlon and Kilion? Sickness, and Kilion is destruction. So you name your kid sickness and destruction. Who names their kids? I mean, I don't know. Maybe they want to like name their kid like Killer or something like that. So maybe they're trying to like say, "Oh, these guys are tough." Anyways, I don't think that's their actual names. I think that's the prophet Samuel again, like making some kind of, like degrading them, because after all, they married foreign wives. They married Moabite women, so and created this whole problem actually. But anyway, so let's see, where were we? Okay. Oh, so he takes the 10 men. So he takes the 10 men. Why? Because what do you need 10 men for? Sheva brachas. For like, the wedding, both a engagement and, a wedding party to celebrate. So then in verse 3, he says, Vayomer legoel chelkas asade asher lachinu laElimelech mochra Noami hashava misdei Moav. Okay, so he says to this Goel, Noami, who has returned from the field of Moab, is selling the portion of the field that belonged to our brother Elimelech. Now, he says brother Elimelech. Excuse me. So if that's the case, that would make Boaz Noami's brother-in-law, and it would make this other guy also a brother-in-law, that kind of a thing. However, pretty much everybody across the board says that achinu right here is the sense of just like more generic sense of our brother, like our bro, yeah. And we have this, the first instance this happens is in Breshit Yud Gimel in Genesis 13, where it talks about Abram and Lot, and it says Achino, and that they were brothers. Obviously, they're not brothers; they're uncle and nephew. So we have this that's already precedent for that. Now, there's another problem here. What's the other problem? The other problem in the Mechira. So, does Nomi have the right to sell the property? So it seems that selling the portion of the field, I don't know if it's the right interpretation or right translation. I don't think that's what he really means, in my opinion. I mean, it could be. Let me see. Hold on one second. I'm looking up something. Give me a moment, because I want to see if there's any other commentators saying anything. Let's see. Hold on. Yeah, okay. So I mean, Ibn Ezra, let's see, what does he say? He says Chalkas Hasadeh, he says the portion of the land, Yisakon Shahaya Hasadeh Gadol, he says this is establishing like it's a big parcel of land. He says this portion belonged to Elimelech. Okay, whatever. So I don't know whether you want to take it that she's selling it, or basically he's talking about the sale of the property. Might be a better way to render the translation. What does Rashi say? Does Rashi say anything about this? Let's see. Oh, she sold the land. Okay. Offering it for sale. Okay, yeah. I guess you can say. I think he's saying talking about the sale of the purchase of land. So, anyways, not to go into the weeds on that one. Okay, let's go ahead and look at one more verse. ואני אמרתי, עגלה אוזניך לאמור, קנה נגד היושבים ונגד זקני עמי, אם תגאל גאל, אם לא יגאל הגידה לי. וידעה כי אין זולתך לגאול ואנוכי אחריך ויאמר אנוכי אגאל. And he says, and I will let you know, saying, buy it in the presence of those who sit here. So obviously they're going to be Adim, they're going to be witnesses before the elders of my people. And if you will redeem, redeem. If you will not redeem, tell me, and I will know. For there is no one besides you to redeem, and I am after you. And he said, I will redeem. Okay. So basically, what's happening up to this point? So Boaz is very smart. So he knows that there's a Moabite woman that's attached to this land. So what's the problem with that? The Torah says you're not allowed to marry a Moabite. Now the question is, can you marry a Moabite woman? Does that mean you can't marry a Moabite man? You can't marry a Moabite women? Okay. The problem is that was a debate. That's the whole issue. And so because he knows that that's the whole issue, he doesn't mention her. So the question, and the sages say that according to what sages say that when he met Noemi, that he had just came from the study hall, and they just had discussed about the halacha of like Moabite men and women, and that they decided, according to his opinion, that you can marry a Moabite woman, you just can't marry a Moabite man. You can marry a Moavia, not a Moavi. And so, but he's very smart because here's this guy, and there's either one of three options. Either the guy just doesn't know about the halacha, he doesn't know which way to go. Okay, that's one option. So maybe he's just ignorant. Okay, the second option is maybe he maybe he doesn't agree with Boaz's opinion, and the third option is this: maybe he's just prejudiced. You know, maybe he's like, yes, I understand the halacha, but I don't want to have anybody, messing up the lineage, which is exactly what he says later. He says, I can't do it now. He backs out when he learns that it's a Moabite Moabite woman that's attached to the property, and because he says it's going to destroy my lineage, right? And so whether he means that, in a derogatory way, or that's kind of up for grabs. But as of right now, all that we know is that he offers him to redeem the land, and he says, all right. Sounds like a good deal. He says, have I got a deal for you? The guy says, all right, sounds like a good deal. And so we'll see tomorrow exactly all the intrigue that happens from there. So anyways, I'm so happy to have all of you guys join. And God willing, we can all learn tomorrow. We can all learn tomorrow with Mashiach Tzidkenu, with a righteous Messiah, who will all be learning in Eretz Yerushalayim together with Mashiach, and he could say, oh yeah, that's about my great grandmother, So anyways, so this is Yisrael Levitt signing off here for Virtual Kolo, coming from beautiful Beth Emmanuel, and have a great day in every way, and I will see you guys all tomorrow.